Welcome back to Movers and Shakers. I'm Deborah Mark. Over the past few years, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Hollywood film and TV stars. But today, we're going to talk about money with one of my favorite guests. You may know him as the wealthy investor from thewealthyinvestor.net. Of course, it's Tyrone Jackson. For those of you who don't know, Tyrone Jackson has built a reputation helping independent investors create wealth using the stock market. Tyrone is also a best-selling author on Amazon.com, and he has his own podcast on iTunes called Trading Stocks Made Easy. Tyrone, thanks so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I love that intro because, just for a few minutes, I feel really important.
Oh, you are. You're always important, and we love having you on our show.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So you have a kind of a rags to riches story. Before you've become so successful, you've come from humble beginnings. And so can you give our audience an overview of your past? Because I think they'll be able to appreciate the present so much more.
Sure. I don't know if I really think of my beginnings as just humble, but I guess kind of here goes. I was raised by a single mom in New York, in a part of New York called Staten Island, and which I sometimes say where dreams go to die. And people don't like that, but it's just that, not a lot happens that's big on Staten Island. And my mother, we lived in federally subsidized housing there. And one of the things I remember about growing up is there was never any money. Right? Except for income tax time. That was the big deal. When I get my income tax check, something is going to happen. I was like, oh, okay, we'll hang on that. And my mother did the best that she could to raise me. But today I talk about inheriting money beliefs. And I took on a lot of her money beliefs, which was that life was going to be hard, making money is a struggle. And she used to say to me, when you grow up, make sure you get a job that pays overtime. But remember, the more you make, the more they'll take. She was referring to the IRS. Uh-huh. And so it's just going to be really hard to get ahead in life. And I had a barrel full of dreams. And but I always remember that. Remember, life is going to be hard, and financially, life is going to be hard. So as much as I also had a simultaneous curiosity about money and wealth and success and how people got there. So it was kind of this war going on inside of me to be successful, whatever that meant at the time. But also remember, it's going to be hard, because we live out our parents' ideals and all that. So that was a struggle I really didn't learn was going on inside me till my 20s and that kind of stuff. But that's essentially how I was raised. There was lots of good food. My mother's a great cook, We always looked good. We always had money for clothes and stuff like that. But we really had nothing in the bank.
Well, so then how did you overcome those feelings then? Because you're so successful now and you help other people become successful and make lots of money. So how were you able to overcome all of those thoughts about money, the negative thoughts about money and worry?
Well, the first thing was I always saw people, this is not terribly scientific, but I would see people in my neighborhood who were Indian immigrants, and they would come and there'd be 6 people in an apartment, and 4 years later, they bought a house and a car. I was like, a house and a car? How do you do that? So I saw people around me moving forward, and I was just curious as to how does that happen? And it wasn't until much later that I realized that how powerful your thoughts are. And I refer to it today as your millionaire mindset, which means no matter how much money you earn right now, if you can learn how to think and prioritize like a really rich person, you can become a really rich person, not only financially, but in terms of all of your other gifts and talents.
So you have a very positive outlook. You're the kind of guy that the glass is always half full. And that's obvious because you started off the way you did and you're so successful. So what I'd like to ask you is how you got started trading stocks.
Well, the stock market is a funny thing. Just before the stock market, I was on TV for 33 years doing commercials and voiceover work and all of that. And when you're in the entertainment business, sometimes it's boom or bust, right? So sometimes you can get a commercial in the air and you're making a lot of money. And then all of a sudden you're like, when's my next job going to happen? So what I learned was to always put a little something away. Someone would say, you learn how to invest money. I was like, I don't know what that means, but put something away. And I later learned that was the stock market, that I could open a brokerage account for $500. And if I just kept putting money in every single month and choosing good stocks, that money would grow. And that turned into like this habit of like, first it turned into like $50 a week. Then it turned into putting in $100 a week, and then $1,000 a month. And then, when I got a big check, $7,000. And that's really how I kind of built from there.
So even when you were struggling as an actor, you still made sure that you were investing, even if it was a little bit.
Well, this is really interesting because I never thought of myself as struggling as an actor. I was just going job to job. Like just that label of like, I'm a struggling actor. I wasn't struggling. I was just on my way to whatever the next great thing was. So that concept, that's what I'm saying about the millionaire mind, just that concept of like, I'm a struggling, I was never, at least in my mind, maybe in reality I was, in my mind, I was never struggling. I was just on my way to this next thing and I had some goals. But so as an actor, I was thinking about this the other day, as an actor at the beginning of my career, that's how I think of it. I started these positive financial habits. So
you and your students have had a lot of success, obviously. So can you please explain your approach to investing and why it works, and also what makes you so different than the other people out there who are talking to people about the same things that you're talking about?
Well, the thing is, I've always had this thing inside me that I just love helping other people. I help other people for free all the time, my students have made, hundreds of thousands, and now that we have this strong internet presence, it's going to be in the millions, which I'm very happy about. I think what people say that they like the most about like the wealthy investor, I call the wealthy investor approach, is I just try to keep things extremely simple, right? Like top line revenue, like how much did Disney actually earn? If the company earned $32 billion and the following year they earned $37 billion, I always say, is 37 higher than 32? People go, yeah. I'm like, great, that makes a good investment. So simplicity is, I've learned something that I really like a lot. And that simplicity helps other people understand what has traditionally been a complex topic, if you will.
So then how would you explain why your approach is so successful? And again, there's so many other people who are trying to teach people about the stock market. And I think when you hear about the stock market, a lot of times people are so confused and it's such a scary concept and people kind of stay away from it. But you make it sound so easy.
Well, first of all, you can make a lot of money. So that's the first thing. The second part is that A, it's not that difficult, and B, there's one core trade that I teach people. When I get them to do this one trade, I've got them for life, and it's called covered calls. Now, I didn't invent it. So essentially, this is how it goes. If I buy a stock at, let's say, $39 a share, inside my brokerage account, my online trading account, as long as I have 100 shares, I can sell an option to someone else to buy the stock away from me at $40. Okay, so let's just keep it real simple. I bought the stock at 39. Inside my account, if I click on the right thing, I can say to somebody out there in the world, hey, would you like to buy this stock that I bought at 39 at 40? They will say yes. It's really not them. The software will match the buyers and sellers. And then the person who sold that option makes money for selling that right. So if you have 100 shares, it's very common to be able to make $100 for selling the right to someone you don't know to buy the stock away from you at a price that is higher than what you paid for it. And this selling rights business starts at $100. It can also bring in $1,000. It can also bring in a guaranteed $7,000. It's all based on the amount of shares that you own. So when I first teach people how to buy a stock and sell a call option against it or write a cover call, and they make $500 guaranteed this month, and then they can do it next month and the month after that and the month after that, I'm essentially helping them get richer because then the next step is to now grow what you have.
So you make it sound so easy. Why are so many people so afraid of investing money?
Because we've been conditioned to think, because we see these commercials on television that only, first of all, money's a service. Like, when you get a certain amount of money, you don't manage your own money. You pay someone else to do that. And that's because we see these commercials from these really big firms saying, come spend your dollars with Fidelity, or only at this fund do we really understand how to help you save for retirement. I'm doing a voiceover.
I like it. I can tell you've done it before.
Yes, I have. So like we believe that. And then we think, oh, money's a service, so I let somebody else do that. And we think that those people who handle money are much smarter than we are. And really, they're not. They just have a job where they point your money in a certain direction and charge you a fee. And you can save all that money on those fees if you learn how to do it yourself.
In your work, you talk a lot about developing a millionaire mindset, which we've just talked about a few minutes ago. So why is that so important?
Because it's our beliefs about money, not our education, that determines how much money you make in this life. So if I said to you, hey, Deborah, you could make an extra $150 a month doing X. You might say to me, oh, okay, Tyrone, well, how do I do that? I don't have a lot of time, but I'll do that. I'll say, okay, great. Now you can make an extra $700 a month doing the same thing. You're like, oh, okay, well, let's see what that is. And I say, hey, Deborah, by the way, did you know you can earn $7,000 a month doing this? That jump from 700 to 7,000, the thing that makes the difference is whether you believe that $7,000 a month is possible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So most people can go, oh, $100 a month, I believe that. $700, you're starting to tamper with what I think is real. I can make $7,000 and be at home? Yes. Nah, Tyrone, that sounds like some kind of scam you got going. Why? Because most of us are conditioned to work for a living and not wealth build. Now, we talked about my background earlier.
Right.
I came from a family where my mother was like, get a job. That's your biggest shot that you have. But when I went out into the world and went to college and high school and I started meeting rich kids, their parents were teaching them to own businesses at 16, 17, 18. Like your businesses should be making money. Now, I'm hanging out with them. I'm their friend. But do you see the difference in what they believe is possible and what their expectations are? That's why so many of my friends I went to high school or college with are so successful today because they came from wealthy families where their families were like, if you're not making $1 million a year by your 30th birthday, you need to decide what kind of failure you are. Because we don't do that in this family. And I always like those expectations of like, I should be making $1 million. Yeah. So I faked it. I faked those beliefs.
You fake it till you make it.
That's exactly right. And then I found the things that, make that real.
Well, how do you teach that, though? How do you teach that to people? I
have learned a variety of ways to do it. I do it through storytelling. So, like, if I'm going to teach, online workshop or class or something, I'm going to teach, I've since learned how to trade derivatives and I teach all that stuff. So if I'm going to teach somebody how to make $30,000 a month, I'll do a 15-minute speech on, like, Mark Zuckerberg. He's worth $40 billion or whatever it is. And I'll have his picture and then I'll, find some article on him. And I was just like, now I'm not asking you to make $40 billion. We're just going to focus on a smaller amount, which is $30,000 a month. So all of a sudden that person has spent 15 minutes focusing on $40 billion. And I'll say, well, most of his wealth is in the stock market. What if I could help you get to $30,000 a month? People are like, well, okay. And then I say, but you have to understand that the way that you're going to get there has nothing to do with what you've learned in high school and college. But are you at least open, since you're a covered call writer now, are you at least open that maybe there's some other trades that produce higher amounts? And they go, okay. And that open mind now allows me to introduce them to concepts that get them to $30,000 a month, if they want it. If it's not your thing, leave it alone. But if you want that kind of freedom, it's possible. It's just trading at a higher level.
What would you like to say to those that are listening right now that are skeptical and they're thinking, oh, this is just a gimmick. Oh, what is Tyrone talking about? How can you convince them that this can be done?
Right. First of all, I don't want to convince them. because people have a lot of issues around money and wealth. And, like for me personally, I met people who were worth $100 million, but they were really nasty, fussy, angry people. And then they use money to play that out. So I was like, well, I don't want to be rich because I don't want to be nasty, fussy, and angry. And then I would meet people who were like the kindest, nicest people, warm. And I was just like, wow, well, why can't I choose which kind of rich person I want to be? So money for all of us has all of these hidden meanings behind them. And when we detach from that and we realize that, like, I always say to people who are close to me, like, people go, aren't you afraid people will try to use you for money? I'm like, no, because I don't walk in the room like that. I try to walk in the room as like a decent human being who's compassionate, interested, and curious about people, because that's who I am. And so whatever money I make, if I'm an inherently generous person, I'm going to be generous with that money because I'm just playing it out. So I'm not trying to convince everybody to be rich, because being rich is not for everyone, largely because money means so much to us. But there are people who that message resonates with, because if I help you make a lot of money as a stock market trader and investor, and you like giving to charity, guess what? Now you have more money to give to charity. So those people who don't want it, it's just not their thing. And I just let it be at that. So the message falls on the ears of the people who are meant to hear it.
What 2 or 3 pieces of advice could you give someone who wants to really change their financial life? So someone who is saying, Tyrone, yes, I'm ready, and please help me figure this out.
Right. Stop hanging out with broke people. That's like the number one thing, right? Because birds of a feather stick together. And people who have no money love to complain about how crappy life is. And they think it's because of money. No, the reason you don't have money is because of your attitude, right? And so people who complain and who are angry and frustrated hang out with other people who complain, who are angry and frustrated. People who are rich and like success and helping other people tend to hang out with people who are like that. I think it was Tony Robbins who once said, if you ever want to see your income, you add up like 5 people who you're closest to, write down what you think their income is, divide it by 5, and that'll be your income. So we have this tendency to huddle together with people who are like us and are thinking, which means that it has to affect your money. So like you need some new friends. If you want to change your life, you need some new friends. So go to the rich church. Because this is a funny thing, Deborah. At the rich church, everybody's praying to the same higher power or God or whatever. But what I have found is at the rich church, they pray for different things than at the poor church. I grew up going to the poor church, right? Where people are like, oh, Lord, if I could just have enough money to make it through the month. And at the rich church, same religion, they're like, oh, God, if I could just sell this business for $5 million, right? So we're all praying for whatever our true desires are, but it's informed, in fact, by like who we're hanging out with. So change your friends. And then the second thing is like write down, if you like all your dreams can come true, write down what kind of house you would have, what kind of car you would have, where you'd like to live, what your perfect day looks like. We call that visualization, because your brain begins to focus on the things that are written down. And I know a lot of this is like, getting in the realm of like spiritual visualization and all that. But I have found that all that stuff works for me and it works for my students, because your brain tends to focus on what you think about the most. Does that make sense?
So it's almost like you have a visualization board.
Yes.
I know that some people, they'll go through magazines and they'll cut out pictures of things that they want in their life, maybe a big, beautiful house, and they stick it on that board. So you're saying that that's really, you can create, if you can vision it, or visualize it, rather, then you can create it.
Yes, and it's very powerful. And here's the thing. You are involved in the active process of creating your life every single day, whether you realize it or not. Because you have appointments, I have appointments, we have things that we focus on, right? But if wealth and financial freedom is not on that list, we wind up focusing on things like, oh, I got to get to the supermarket, or, oh, I'm going to get this huge tax bill. We start to focus on the reality that we see around us every single day, as opposed to the reality that we want. And we're all going into the future because the past is over. So why don't you pick where you'd like to go in the future, actively put your intentions behind it, focus on that, and then your money will follow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Do you have any success stories that you would like to share with us?
I have a lot of success stories. This just happened last week. We were wrapping up trades for the end of the year. And I always tell my students, okay, now you all know you can make money from the stock market through cover call writing every single month. So this woman comes up, and the average person in my in-person classes, they stay for 5 to 6 years. Because what happens is when their accounts start to grow, who else are you going to talk to about like, oh, I made $30,000? Like, you want to tell people that. So at the end of the class, I always stick around. I say, if you guys have any individual questions, I got 15 minutes over here. So this woman comes up. I won't say her name. She comes up to me and she says, and I love it when my students hit their goals because I teach them how to set goals. And my goal for my students is to try, Deborah, to make as many millionaires as possible. And the reason is that's just the fun thing to do. So this woman comes up. She's been in the program for 4.5 years, and they always get quiet when they come up to me. She was like, hey, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, she extends her hand to shake. She goes, "I just want you to know that every goal that I set in this program, I reached. I have 3 accounts now that are trading accounts that are 7 figures. All 3 of them are 7 figures." And I just felt like you should know that. I said, "That's cool. Why are we whispering right now?" Right? Because it's almost like her mind is blown that she was able to do it. And eventually she was like, "I just wanted you to know that." I was like, "Well, that's why you're here." So it wasn't a secret to me, but it was a secret to her. But can you imagine what that must be like for that person who, granted, started with several $100,000 and has, 3 accounts with $1 million?
Oh, it's amazing.
That's huge. But she changed her focus. She set her goals, her intentions, and then she learned the trades, and that's why she has the life that she has today. Now, if I could help her get to 3 million, then I can help her get to 6 million, right? It's the same trades over and over, just with more money. So that's the first success story. And then people always send me emails, "I paid off my house because of you." And, we had unexpected medical expense and we sold cover calls and we, were able to take care of it. And the stories just go on and on and on. And I'm just so happy because I think I'm just a vehicle in people's lives and they allow me in. And then I just, point the flashlight over here and go, trade this way and change your mentality. And it works.
So people that want to be like you and learn what you have to teach, how do they go about finding out more information about you and maybe being a part of what you're teaching and learning more? What do they do?
Well, it's really easy. I mean, you go to thewealthyinvestor.net, Just download the free ebook, Trading Stocks Made Easy. Get to know a little bit about the stock market, get to know a little bit about the wealthy investor approach, and learn the financial language because it's just such a shame that we're not educated about money in high school, college, grad school, but I'm fortunate to be just a messenger of many, one of many. But I think that ebook really helps people because it's simple. It's simple. So that's a great place to start. Or you can go to yahoofinance.com. There are articles there about trading and investing. But, I did kind of write an ebook and I'd like for you to have it. So that seems like the next logical step.
Well, you're almost like a life coach. I mean, you're teaching us how to make a lot of money, but you're also a life coach. And it seems like these two, the success of what you're trying to teach, it goes hand in hand with just having a positive attitude. And it just seems like your style is very positive. And the first thing that comes to mind is a life coach.
Yes.
And I think that you make everything sound so easy and you make things sound so positive that I would think you must just be an awesome teacher.
Listen, those are wonderful. When people say things like that, of course I love it, right? And I just look at it more like I'm just a positive vehicle in the world for people's lives. And if I have a message that resonates with them, terrific. I do have to do a little inner motivational stuff to kind of wake them up. But I'm just a guy having this experience and building a brand and helping people, and it resonates with people, and that makes me happy. And then I go home and watch the Kardashians for 3 hours. But thank you for that. That's all really nice stuff. That's all really nice.
All right. So again, if you want to find out more about Tyrone Jackson, again, can you just give us a website and give us some more ways to find you again? Just
really simple. Go to thewealthyinvestor.net, download the Trading Stocks for Wealth free ebook, and begin to educate yourself financially.
All right. Tyrone, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. And if you want to learn more about me, I am on Facebook, and you can find me at Debra, Debra, Mark, Mark. And I'm also on Twitter, and my handle is at DebraMark1. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.